Let me introduce Sue. Sue Reid is a proud Canberran who is passionate about creating healthy communities. She grew up in Canberra and went on to study psychology and neuroscience at the ANU and completed her qualifications to become a registered psychologist. From the age of 5, Sue has had sport running through her veins. She boasts a remarkable athletic background across several sports, showcasing her determination and discipline on the field. As an elite athlete in track and field, she excelled in discus and javelin, gaining several titles and records that still have not been broken. Additionally, Sue was a national weightlifting champion, and her athleticism also extended to the soccer pitch, where she served as a goalkeeper for the Australian national women's soccer team, the Matildas. Her experiences as a high-performance athlete have instilled in her a deep understanding of the importance of mental strength, teamwork, resilience, and leadership in achieving her goals both on and off the field. Sue became passionate about the area of preventative health and wellness following some severe injuries and illnesses that effectively cut short her elite sporting career. In 1999, Sue started her own health and psychology practice, Life Unlimited Psychology, what a name, and she has dedicated the last 25 years to clinical practice and assisting individuals and organizations to attain optimal health. Her off-field pursuits include providing pro bono psychological support to the Canberra Capital's WNBL team, as well as appearing on ABC Radio Canberra as our city's very own resident psychologist. Most recently, Sue turned her attention to launching and running the Save Canberra United campaign, successfully I might add, they've been saved, and worked tirelessly to keep our beloved A-League women's soccer team here in the heart of Canberra through a crowdfunding campaign and lobbying government for additional funding. Sue's passion has always been to contribute to her community in a positive way and to assist in creating change. She currently lives with a partner of 19 years, Julia, and their chocolate Labrador, Jack. Their now grown daughter, Erin, lives in Kayleen. Sue Reid.
Thank you. That was the speech, just so you know. That was it. Thank you. And I do want to say thank you so much for everyone coming out on a Sunday afternoon. I had a little surgery the other day, and I thought it would have been pretty amusing for me to try and talk under the sedative, but I'll leave that for when I run for federal politics and end up slurring my speech somewhere. And thank you so much, Tom, for creating this space for us this afternoon. I really appreciate it. And I'm here to run as a prospective candidate for Ginninderra in the upcoming ACT election. I do also just want to point out probably some alliances. Like, I only met Tom maybe a month ago, maybe not even that. I had heard about him from lots of my own clients who have come here to work on their physical and mental well-being or in their own injuries over many years. And the more I heard from them and then chatting to Tom, the more I realised how much we had in common. We both suffered from chronic pain. We both wanted to heal ourselves, essentially, and then turn what we'd learnt into helping other people around us and moving that into our business space. And then I think also this sense of understanding the alliance of needing to step in when things need to be done differently. I'm very happy if someone can do a job better than me, that they go ahead and do it. I think what we've all been hearing is that it's probably time for some different representation, and these ideals around integrity, around really proper representation of people is something I align really strongly with. So we have a lot of similarities. I have decided to keep my hair at this point. That may change, I'm not sure. That's right. Today, though, in the first part of time that we've got, and obviously we'll have time for questions, rather than outlining policies, as was mentioned, it's a little bit more about understanding me, like what I think brings me and the qualities I have to be able to represent our community. As a psychologist, I'm actually more comfortable asking other people questions and listening to them, so I'll try and talk a bit about myself, but then also about the approach I would take, the values I have, and how I think that can represent our community. So that's probably part of the aim of that. I think firstly, so much of what's shaped me as a person has come from fundamentally living and engaging in every part of the community in Canberra. I've tried to get out a few times, but I've discovered you just can't do it. You keep coming back here. I went to school here, Lynham High School, Dixon College, ANU, and of course started my business here. And you may be surprised that I started that in 1999. So I just want to point out I qualified as a psychologist at the age of 12, just in case you're wondering. And really, you know, with everything that I have been doing, my life already is quite meaningful and full. So the idea to step into politics is not a decision that I've taken lightly. I think, like I said, it's about, I don't need politics to do anything for me. certainly not the pay from what I've heard, not about other things. Really, it comes from a deep sense of wanting to serve the community in some way. And I can remember from a very young age, all I've really wanted to do is to make people's lives better or their community better in some way. And I think that's really where I think true politics at a grassroots level should be about connecting with people and representing them appropriately and being able to bring some good values into that space. So that's really kind of why I'm doing this. And as mentioned, sport's always been a big part of my life. I think there are many things I can take away from working in that elite physical environment that really do, I think, give me good insights for how do we achieve in different realms of life. So sport really is a training ground for lots of other areas of our lives that we go into. What I learned in elite level sport is that if you want to be good at anything, you do have to develop a few key skills. You need to have a certain element of discipline. You need to have an element of dedication, perseverance, resilience. There are many things you have to do that are quite difficult and boring day to day. Getting up and training hard 5 hours a day, every day for 20 years of your life is not always that fun. And I also know there's a lot of things you have to say no to in order to pursue and be excellent in one realm of life. I think if you're not really clearly aligned with why you're showing up, so what your values are, what your meaning is, and what your purpose is, it becomes very difficult to do the day-to-day activities. So for me, this idea, anything I do, business life, work, engaging with people, it's really about getting clear on the sense of meaning and purpose and values, knowing that the stuff itself is quite hard. There's a lot of work to do. Certainly as a party, there's a lot of work to do in different realms of things in Canberra. But when we're driven by our values, that can push us through those difficult realms. And I think that's something that I've certainly taken away from that space. And I think that sense of values is certainly what's helped me align with, I think does align quite well with the values and principles of the Independence for Canberra Party. That's why I'm here in this space. Probably the one other thing I would say that I took away from sport is really understanding that it doesn't matter how talented you are individually as a person. If you don't have a good group of people around you, if you don't have good leaders and mentors, and if you can't take on board feedback from those people, you do not reach your full potential. So it's even in an individual sport, it's always about the meaningful relationships that you are able to develop over time. And that's what really leads to success. And I think there's a lot of alignment there when we look at something like the field of business or politics. And certainly in the psychological realm, I could talk about that for a long time, but the couple of key takeaways from working in psychology and neuroscience at an individual and a group level, certainly it's about deeply listening to the heart of what's happening for other people. Very often it's about trying to either educate, motivate, or bring people together. Certainly when I work in organizations with people, not everybody agrees, so you're trying to bring them together. It's always coming from a space of non-judgment and from empathy. And I think the other element of psychology is it's really about applying evidence-based principles. We don't just show up and hope that we do a good job. You've got to really understand what you're doing, apply that in quite a rigorous way to help motivate or engage some kind of behavioral change in people. So I think that element of evidence-based to me, certainly when I work in different areas of government or with different areas of government, we don't always see evidence being applied or what really properly makes sense. So that's something I'm quite passionate about. And then I think in Canberra for many years, we probably had been reasonably content with the government that we had. What I've started to notice maybe the last 8 years is that starting to change and hearing a different story. I think certainly before the last election, I was quite shocked that the government got back in because I had heard so many disgruntled people around. We were in COVID times, so of course you're probably not going to go for a change at that point. But this last few years, I've again been hearing people feeling increasingly disgruntled, forgotten, not listened to, left behind. I think that we've started to feel like perhaps our government's become a little more complacent. And instead of consulting and really listening, there can sometimes be a sense of disconnect and almost arrogance that we've been hearing about. And so that's where I think it's opened up this space that why we need a change at this point in time. Now, I'm certainly not going to pretend that it's simple to balance all the various needs of a city like Canberra. We have a limited financial base. We have a lot of complex things we're trying to do. But I do believe we can probably do those slightly differently and that we've got to really utilize the skills and the expertise we have to do that effectively in this space. And I think that's where we can make some difference and some inroads. I was really surprised, I think, or not surprised, because I listen to ABC radio every day, so I hear everything people are saying. But I think on reflection, just realizing that in Canberra, which I think should be the safest, healthiest, happiest place on the planet. Like, if we can't do that here, where can you do that? But to hear that we're getting further and further behind in some really key areas in our community. So firstly, people feeling disconnected, disempowered, and disgruntled. And I think understanding that when we feel like we don't have a sense of agency, that's one of the worst places we can be in psychologically. When we start to feel like the world is happening to us, and particularly if government is doing things to us, we start to spiral downwards, often into a space of feeling helpless or hopeless, and not feeling like we'll be engaged or invested to make changes for ourselves or in our environment. And to hear that we have mental health issues higher than other jurisdictions in the country is quite shocking. To recognise that we have literacy rates that have become worse over the last 20 years, and that now 1 in 3 15-year-olds do not meet the basic standards of proficiency in reading and similarities in numeracy. You know, that starts to be quite shocking when we think about it in a space like Canberra. I'll touch on some of the other areas. Of course, the health system is one of those. Housing, there's all the topics that we're all quite aware of. What I really do believe in any of these areas is listening to and fighting for what communities believe in. As Tom mentioned recently, I had a really good experience of people-powered mobilisation with the Save Canberra United campaign. Does everyone know who Canberra United is? Yes, and if you haven't donated yet, it's QR code over here, but Canberra United is, it's our elite level women's football, although no one knows what that is, so soccer team. We are one of the most successful teams in the history of the competition. We've produced the most number of Matildas out of nearly any team in Australia, and we were looking at folding our team due to a range of reasons, but one of the key ones was really a chronic underfunding of money into women's sport. And there's a whole range of issues and concerns around that. So what we did in a very short space of time was put a call out, and some of these people are here, to, again, call on Canberrans who were willing to donate time and energy. We created a not-for-profit organisation, social media platforms, lobbied government, set up a crowdfunding page. And in the last 4 weeks, we've raised over $81,000. We've lobbied government and successfully achieved an additional funding amount of $200,000, talk to all the different parts of government. And I think we have saved our team, but what that really highlighted is when you listen to people and you're able to really properly take action, we can see change very rapidly. And we have those skills and expertise here in Canberra. Before I get kicked off, I was going to try and say 2 things. No one can stop me, so it's fine. The bigger issues I think that we're facing as a city, as I said, both the broader ones around the health system, but also local issues. I'm hearing more people want good accessibility to the buildings and the spaces they're in. We want our footpaths fixed. We want the fields and amenities to have proper maintenance, as well as thinking of these higher level things. The one thing I really want to mention that I'm really passionate about is our health system. I think we currently, of course, have very high wait times for emergency. We have issues in terms of getting into GPs. I think we need a philosophical shift in the way we do healthcare. At the moment, what we have is an illness treatment model. We do not have a health system. And what we really need to look at is a shift into prevention and early intervention. We know for every dollar we spend in prevention, we get a return of somewhere between $14 to $27 for not having to spend at the emergency end of the spectrum. And this is closely tied for me to our rates of loneliness. If we look at one variable in our community, 40% of Canberrans say that they experience a deep sense of loneliness regularly. And we know that people experience loneliness have a higher impact on the health system, mental and physical health, earlier rates of death from all-cause mortality, increased risk of heart disease, autoimmune conditions, a whole range of impacts on the health system. If we start addressing things at this end of the spectrum, versus at the emergency end, which is not sustainable, we start to be able to deal with it in a fundamentally different way. And of course, there's lots of complexity around that, but I think that's one of the areas, for example, we could start to think of quite differently and engage with quite differently. I will say in summary, yes, that we are done. So I'm very happy to have questions and delve into those a little bit more, but hopefully that gives you a little snapshot of what values and what perspective that I bring. So, yes. Oh, thank you.